Welcome to the edge of the world, or at least the edge of sanity. Imagine being trapped on a giant, vibrating, rusted IKEA shelf in the middle of a literal abyss, surrounded by thousands of miles of salt water that wants you dead, and a few million gallons of pressurized dinosaur juice beneath you that wants to explode. That is your office. Congratulations on the promotion, rookie. You're now an offshore oil rig worker. You probably saw the paycheck and thought you'd be buying a Raptor by Christmas. Well, you might if you survive long enough to spend it. The first thing you learn out here isn't how to drill, it's that sleep is a myth. It's 3 a.m. Your alarm is screaming, but you didn't need it because the entire rig has been humming like a disturbed beehive all night. You roll out of a bunk that smells like industrial degreaser and the broken dreams of the guy who had the shift before you. You put on your coveralls, which are stiff with a mixture of salt, oil, and sweat that's become a permanent part of the fabric. You grab a cup of coffee that tastes like battery acid and despair. Welcome to the graveyard shift. The routine is simple. Work 12 hours, eat, sleep, repeat, for 14 to 28 days straight. There are no weekends, there are no holidays, there is only the drill. You step out onto the deck and the wind hits you like a physical punch. Out here, the wind doesn't just blow, it screams. It's a constant high-pitched whistle through the steel lattice of the derrick. You're a roustabout, the bottom of the food chain. Your job is to move things, heavy things, rusty things, things that want to crush your fingers. You're basically a glorified pack mule with a hard hat. You're unloading supplies from a boat that's tossing 10 feet up and down in the swells, while a crane operator who's had even less sleep than you dangles a 3-ton crate over your head. One wrong move, one snapped cable, and you're a pancake. But hey, the benefits are great, right? The smell is the next thing that gets you. It's a cocktail of diesel fumes, hydrogen sulfide, and the salty rot of the ocean. It gets into your skin. It gets into your hair. You can shower 3 times, but you'll still smell like a gas station for a week after you get home. Then there's the noise. It's never quiet. Between the massive generators, the mud pumps, and the iron Roughneck slamming pipe together, the rig is a 120 decibel heavy metal concert that never ends. You learn to read lips because talking is useless. You communicate in hand signals and nods. You're working on the drill floor now, helping the Roughnecks. This is where the magic and the trauma happens. You're surrounded by spinning steel, high-pressure hoses, and enough torque to twist a skyscraper into a pretzel. You're covered in mud, not the stuff from your backyard. This is drilling fluid, a toxic, slippery, expensive chemical soup that keeps the hole from collapsing and the drill bit from melting. It's in your eyes, in your mouth, and in your boots. You're exhausted, your joints ache, and you've still got 8 hours left on the clock. You look at the horizon, and there's nothing. No land, no birds, just the gray, churning Atlantic. You realize you're a tiny speck of carbon on a multi-billion-dollar machine poking a hole in a planet that clearly doesn't want to be poked. And then the sky starts to turn a very specific shade of bruised purple. The barometer is dropping faster than a lead weight. The veteran driller looks at the sky, spits a glob of tobacco onto the deck, and tells you to secure the loose gear. The storm is coming. And out here, there's nowhere to run.
So you think you're tough enough for this? You think because you worked a summer in construction or survived a bad breakup, you can handle the steel island? Think again. Before you ever set foot on a helicopter headed for the Gulf or the North Sea, they put you through a little thing called BOSIT, Basic Offshore Safety Induction and Emergency Training. It's essentially a week-long psychological torture session designed to see if you'll flip out when the world turns upside down. Because on a rig, the world turns upside down a lot. Let's talk about HUET, Helicopter Underwater Escape Training. This is the highlight of the week. They strap you into a fake helicopter cabin with 3 other terrified recruits. Then they drop that cabin into a deep, cold pool. And then, just for fun, they flip it upside down.
while you're underwater, in the dark, disoriented, bubbles everywhere. You have to wait for the motion to stop, find the emergency exit, kick it out, and swim to the surface without drowning or panicking. If you fail, you do it again and again. They want to see that psycho look in your eyes, the one that says you've accepted your death and are now focused solely on the mechanics of survival. Most people quit right here. They realize that making $60 an hour isn't worth the sensation of their lungs filling with pool water while they're strapped to a chair. But if you pass, you get to move on to the fire training. Imagine a steel box filled with jet fuel. Now imagine they light it on fire. Your job is to put it out using a hose that's trying to fly out of your hands while wearing 50 pounds of gear in 100 degrees heat. They're teaching you that on a rig, you are the fire department. There is no 911. If the platform catches fire, you either put it out or you jump 100 feet into a freezing ocean and hope a shark isn't feeling snacky. Then there's the medical training. You learn how to use a tourniquet, how to treat a crush injury, and how to stabilize a guy who just had his arm caught in a winch. You realize very quickly that help is hours away by hopper, and that's if the weather is good. You're being trained to be a mechanic, a firefighter, a diver, and a trauma medic all at once, while being chronically sleep-deprived. The recruitment process is a meat grinder. Companies look for people with high resilience. That's corporate speak for someone who won't have a mental breakdown when they haven't seen their family in a month and the walls are literally vibrating. They test your lungs, your back, your hearing, and your soul. You undergo drug tests that are so thorough they can tell what your grandfather smoked in the 60s. They don't want heroes, they want robots. They want people who can follow a 500-page safety manual to the letter while a gale force wind is trying to blow them off the catwalk. You spend hours in classrooms learning about the blowout, the nightmare scenario, Deepwater Horizon stuff. You learn about the BOP, the blowout preventer, a massive stack of valves on the sea floor that is the only thing standing between you and a catastrophic geyser of fire. You learn the physics of pressure, the chemistry of gas, and the terrifying reality that you are sitting on top of a literal bomb. By the end of training, you're not the same person who signed that contract. You're cynical, you're hyper-vigilant, and you have a new appreciation for the fact that every single thing on an oil rig is designed to kill you if you stop paying attention for even a second. You get your certificate, you get your flight assignment, and you board that Sikorsky helicopter. As the blades start spinning and the land disappears behind you, you realize there's no turning back. You're part of the brotherhood of the burning water now, and the ocean is waiting for you.
The storm isn't coming anymore. It's here, and it's angry. The bruised purple sky has turned a pitch black that no flashlight can pierce. The wind isn't whistling anymore. It's a roar that vibrates in your very marrow. Out here in the deep water, the waves aren't just waves. They're moving walls of black glass, 50, 60, 70 feet high. When they hit the legs of the rig, the entire 50,000-ton structure shuddering like it's being hit by a freight train. You're on the drill floor because the job doesn't stop for a little rain. But this isn't rain. This is a horizontal deluge that feels like gravel hitting your face. You can't see 5 feet in front of you. Suddenly, the alarms start. Not the lunch is ready bell, the code black. The klaxon is a guttural, terrifying scream that cuts through the roar of the gale. You look at the driller. His face is pale, illuminated by the flickering red emergency lights. The sensors are screaming. We have a kick. Down in the hole, 3 miles beneath the seafloor, we've hit a high-pressure gas pocket. The drilling mud is being pushed back up the pipe. The pressure is spiking. If we don't control it, the gas will reach the surface, find a spark, and turn this rig into a Roman candle visible from space. "Secure the pipe," the driller yells, but you can barely hear him. You and the other roughnecks scramble. The deck is an ice rink of mud and rain. The rig is swaying so hard you can barely stand. You're wrestling with a massive iron wrench, trying to secure the drill string.
A wave hits the platform and a spray of icy seawater douses you, blinding you for a second. You hear a sound like a gunshot. A high-pressure line is snapped. It's whipping around like a demonic snake, spraying toxic fluid everywhere. If it hits you, it'll cut you in half. You dive behind a steel pillar, heart hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird. "Activate the BOP!" someone screams over the radio. This is it, the last line of defense. The driller hits the emergency shear rams. Thousands of feet below us, massive steel blades are supposed to crush and cut the drill pipe, sealing the well. We wait. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. The rig is vibrating so violently you think the bolts are going to pop out of the floor. The pressure gauge is still climbing. It's in the red. We're seconds away from a blowout. You look at the escape pods, those orange pill-shaped lifeboats. Launching one of those in 70-foot seas is a suicide mission, but staying here is a death sentence. You start thinking about your family, about that Raptor you'll never drive, about the coffee you didn't finish, and then a shudder, a deep metallic groan that echoes through the entire structure. The pressure gauge flickers. It stops climbing. It starts to drop. The ram's held. The well is sealed. The kick has been contained. You collapse against a rusted bulkhead, your breath coming in ragged gasps. Your hands are shaking so hard you have to sit on them. You're soaked, you're freezing, and you've never felt more alive. The storm continues to rage for another 12 hours, but the immediate threat of exploding into a fireball is gone. You spend the rest of the shift cleaning up the carnage on the deck, securing the snapped lines and checking your buddies for injuries. No one talks. There's nothing to say. You all saw the abyss, and for today, the abyss blinked first. When your shift finally ends, you crawl back to your bunk. You don't even take off your boots. You just fall into a black, dreamless sleep while the rig continues to sway in the dying storm. 2 weeks later, you're on the helicopter heading back to the mainland. You look down at the rig, a tiny, defiant spark of light in the vast, dark ocean. You touch the scar on your hand from where the wrench slipped, and you feel that familiar, twisted smirk crawling across your face. People back home will ask you how it was. They'll ask you about the money. You'll just shrug, take a sip of your overpriced airport coffee, and tell them it was quiet. Because they wouldn't understand. They haven't stood on the edge of the world. They haven't looked into the eye of the storm and told it to go to hell. You're an offshore oil rig worker. You're exhausted, you're broken, and you're already counting the days until you go back. Because out there, in the chaos and the steel, is the only place you feel real. Welcome to the Code Black. Stay caffeinated. Stay alive. We'll see you on the next